They dragged her through the cheering crowd in silver chains, her own pack, the family she had bled and killed for spitting on her like garbage, shaved, broken, accused of stealing their sacred moonstone. Liora Voss screamed her innocence as they threw her into the silver dungeon to rot. But on the third night, when her wolf finally shattered, she unleashed a howl so raw, so powerful, it tore across the continent and woke the deadliest Alpha King alive. He ripped the dungeon door off its hinges at midnight, looked at the beaten, half-dead woman on the floor, and growled one word that changed everything. Mine. Now the pack that caged her will learn what happens when you betray the Supreme King's fated Luna. And Liora? She's done being the victim. The vengeance, the claiming, the war with gods, it all starts with that single howl. Broken howl. The Silverfang pack had always burned bright under the mountain moon. Warriors laughed around crackling bonfires, pups chased fireflies between the ancient pines, and the scent of pine resin and roasted meat hung thick in the night air. For 23 years this was home, this was family, until it wasn't. Traitor! The shout tore through the central square like a blade. Liora Voss stood frozen in the circle of torches, wrists already bound. The sacred moonstone artifact lay at her feet, planted there by the very hands that now pointed at her in disgust. Alpha Marcus Hale's sister Celine clutched her brother's arm, tears streaming down her flawless face. I saw her, Marcus. She took it from the temple. She laughed while she did it. Leora's heart hammered against her ribs. That's a lie. I was on patrol, Marcus. You know me. I would never... Silence, Marcus roared. His eyes, once filled with pride when he looked at his best warrior, now held only ice and disappointment. The pack that had cheered her name in battle now snarled it like a curse. Hands grabbed her shoulders. Someone yanked her long, dark braid hard enough to snap her head back. Pain exploded across her scalp as they dragged her toward the dungeons. She fought, claws flashing, wolf surging, but silver chains slammed around her wrists, and the fight died in a scream. The metal seared her skin. Her wolf howled inside her, betrayed and broke. They threw her into the deepest cell. Cold stone kissed her cheek as she hit the floor. The heavy silver door clanged shut, locking her in darkness that smelled of old blood and despair. Marcus, she whispered, voice cracking. Please, I fought for you, for all of you. No answer came, only the echo of boots walking away, hours blurred into days. 3 nights of agony. The silver cuffs ate into her flesh, weakening her wolf until it curled small and whimpering in her chest. Hunger gnawed. Thirst burned. But the worst pain lived in her heart, the shattering knowledge that the pack she had bled for had thrown her away like rotten meat. She curled tighter in the corner, tears carving hot paths down her dirty face. Every memory cut deeper than the silver. Training with the warriors at dawn, laughing with the pups, the way Marcus once said she might one day stand as Luna. All of it is poisoned now. I didn't do it, she sobbed into her knees. I'm innocent. Something inside her snapped. A deeper, ancient power she had never touched before surged upward like molten lava. Her true wolf, wild, royal, and unstoppable, opened its eyes in fury. The silver suddenly felt weaker. Heat flooded her veins. Liora threw her head back, throat raw, and unleashed the howl. It was not a sound. It was a weapon. High, piercing, vibrating with every ounce of her pain, her rage, and her shattered loyalty. The frequency ripped through the dungeon walls, through the mountain air, and shot across the night like a silver arrow. Far away, in the obsidian halls of the Supreme Palace, Supreme Alpha King Ronan Blackthorn froze. The howl slammed into his chest and wrapped around his soul. Mate. His wolf exploded forward with a snarl that shook the windows. Golden eyes burned. Without a word, he stormed toward the landing platform, black cloak whipping behind his massive frame. Get the jet ready now. His voice was death itself. Someone dared cage what is mine. Back in the cell, Liora collapsed, gasping, and the howl drained the last of her strength. She lay on the freezing stone, broken and trembling, certain no one would come. Midnight fell. The ground trembled. A roar of jet engines split the sky above Silverfang territory. The entire pack spilled out of their homes, terror written on their faces as the sleek black aircraft descended like the hand of judgment. Ronan stepped out. Power rolled off him in crushing waves. Wolves dropped to their knees before they could think. He didn't slow. He marched straight to the dungeons, eyes glowing molten gold. 2 enforcers tried to block him. He hurled them through the air like broken dolls. With a savage roar, Ronan seized the silver-reinforced door and ripped it clean off its hinges. Metal screamed, sparks exploded. The scent of burning silver filled the air. Liora lifted her head. Through strands of matted hair she saw him towering, furious, radiating raw dominance and something deeper, something that called to her shattered soul. Their eyes locked. The mate bond ignited like lightning in her veins. Warmth crashed through her broken body. For the first time in days she felt alive. Ronan crossed the cell in 2 strides, dropped to one knee and gently cupped her bruised face with hands that could crush mountains. His thumb brushed a tear from her cheek with shocking tenderness. "You're safe now, little wolf," he growled, voice thick with barely controlled rage and something softer. "I've got you." He lifted her into his powerful arms as if she were made of glass. As he carried her out into the moonlight in front of the terrified pack, Liora pressed her face against his chest, breathing in pine, storm, and safety. Her tears soaked his shirt. Alpha Marcus stepped forward, pale and shaking. "My king, this is pack matter." "Silence!" Ronan's voice thundered across the square. "You caged my fated mate. Your title is stripped. Your pack is mine to judge." He looked down at Liora, eyes softening only for her. "And the punishment will be whatever she desires." Liora lifted her head, trembling, tears still falling but a fierce new light kindling in her eyes. The pack that betrayed her now trembled before the king who had torn the sky apart just to reach her. Awakening in the king's arms. Liora clung to Ronan's chest as he carried her through the stunned pack. The night air tasted different now, sharper, alive. Every heartbeat against his ribs sent fresh waves of warmth crashing through her silver-poisoned body. Yet her mind screamed warnings. "This can't be real. Nothing good ever lasts." "Put me down," she rasped, voice hoarse from days of screaming. "I can walk," Ronan's arms tightened. "No," his growl vibrated through her bones. He didn't stop until they reached the sleek black jet waiting on the clearing. The pack watched in frozen silence as the Supreme Alpha King ignored every protocol and carried her up the stairs like a stolen treasure. Inside the jet, the world narrowed to soft leather seats and dim golden lights. Ronan set her down gently on a wide bench, but the moment his hands left her, the cold rushed back in. She shivered violently. He dropped to his knees in front of her. Up close he was overwhelming, broad shoulders straining his black shirt, sharp jaw clenched, molten gold eyes burning with fury and something far more dangerous, hunger. "They will pay for every mark on you," he said, voice low and lethal. Leora's breath hitched. Part of her wanted to believe him. The bigger part, the one still bleeding from betrayal, recoiled. "Why do you care? You don't even know me." The mate bond flared between them, hot and insistent. Ronan's hand rose slowly, giving her time to flinch away. When she didn't, his fingers brushed a raw silver burn on her wrist. She gasped at the spark that shot up her arm. "I know enough," he murmured. "Your howl called me across half the continent. My wolf tore at my ribs until I answered." His thumb traced her pulse. "You are mine, Liora, and I destroy anything that hurts what's mine." Tears she thought had run dry spilled over again. The kindness in his touch cracked the wall she'd built in that dungeon. A broken sob tore from her throat. Ronan pulled her into his chest without hesitation, one large hand cradling the back of her head as she shattered. "I trusted them," she cried against his neck. "I fought for them and they threw me away like garbage." "I know, little wolf." His voice cracked with restrained rage. "I felt every second of it." The jet engines roared to life. As they lifted into the sky, Ronan kept holding her, rocking her gently while the Silverfang territory disappeared below. For the first time in days, the constant burn of silver began to fade against his warmth. When the jet finally landed at his obsidian palace, Ronan carried her straight to his private chambers. No servants, no guards, just them. Steam curled from the massive marble bath he prepared himself. He lowered her onto the edge, then carefully peeled away the torn, filthy remains of her clothes. Leora's cheeks burned with shame and something hotter as his eyes darkened at every bruise and cut revealed. "You don't have to," she started. "I want to." His tone left no room for argument. He knelt beside the tub, rolling up his sleeves to reveal powerful forearms. With shocking tenderness, he washed the blood and dirt from her skin. Every stroke of the warm cloth sent shivers racing through her. When he reached the deep burns on her wrists, he leaned in and pressed his lips to the damaged skin. The mate bond flared brighter. Liora's breath caught. The pain dissolved into liquid heat. Her wolf stirred, no longer whimpering, purring. Ronan's control snapped. He rose, pulled her from the water and into his arms in one fluid motion. Wet skin met dry clothes as he crushed his mouth to hers. The kiss was not gentle. It was desperate, claiming teeth and tongue and 3 days of hell pouring out of her into him. Liora moaned into his mouth, fingers tangling in his dark hair, pulling him closer. His hands roamed down her bare back, gripping her hips with barely leashed strength. The bond sang. Pleasure and relief crashed through her so hard her knees buckled. Ronan caught her, pressing her against the cool wall, his body a wall of heat and muscle keeping her upright. He kissed her like a man who had crossed the world for this single taste. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Ronan rested his forehead against hers. "You're safe," he whispered fiercely. "You're home." A sharp knock shattered the moment. "My king," a breathless messenger called from the door. "Urgent news from Silverfang territory. Celine escaped before your decree. She's already rallying rogue wolves and some of the old enforcers. They're swearing vengeance against the false king who stole their warrior." Ronan's eyes flashed with lethal promise. Liora's stomach dropped. The woman who had destroyed her life wasn't finished. She tightened her grip on Ronan's shirt, fear and fresh fire warring in her chest. The war had already begun. Shadows of doubt. Ronan's jaw tightened like iron. He kept one arm locked around Liora's bare waist, shielding her body with his own as he turned toward the door. "Leave," he snarled at the messenger. The door slammed shut. Liora's heart hammered against her ribs. Celine was free. The same woman who had smiled while watching her dragged away in silver chains was now building an army. "She won't stop," Liora whispered, voice shaking with rage and fear. "She'll burn everything to get me back in that cage." Ronan cupped her face, forcing her to meet his burning golden eyes. "Then I'll burn her first." The raw promise in his voice sent a dangerous thrill through her, but doubt crept in fast and cold. She pushed away from his chest, suddenly aware of her nakedness, her scars, her worthlessness. "Why risk your kingdom for me? You are not just anything." He backed her toward the tall, arched window that overlooked his sprawling obsidian kingdom. Moonlight poured over the mountains and distant lights of the capital. 3 years ago, I watched my own mother executed by traitors in this very palace. I stood alone on that balcony with their blood on my hands and swore I would never let anyone take what was mine again. Liora's breath caught. The loneliness in his words mirrored her own. She reached up, tracing the sharp line of his jaw. "I'm broken, Ronan. They took everything." His answer was a fierce kiss that stole the air from her lungs. He lifted her effortlessly, pressing her back against the cool glass. The contrast of the cold window and his scorching body made her gasp. His hands roamed possessive, hungry, sliding down her sides, gripping her thighs as he pinned her in place. Liora moaned into his mouth, legs wrapping around his waist. The mate bond exploded between them, flooding her veins with liquid fire. She tore at his shirt, buttons scattering across the floor, revealing the hard planes of muscle beneath. Her fingers dug into his shoulders as he ground against her, the friction pulling desperate sounds from her throat. "You feel that?" he growled against her lips, voice rough. "That's real. That's ours." He kissed down her neck, teeth grazing the sensitive spot where a mark would someday sit. Liora arched, crying out as pleasure spiked through the lingering pain in her body. His hand slipped between them, stroking her with perfect pressure until her vision blurred. Every touch screamed, "You are wanted. You are mine." For one blinding moment, the doubt vanished. She felt powerful, desired, alive. Then her wolf surged without warning. A wild, ancient power detonated inside her chest. Her eyes flared bright silver. The window behind her cracked under the sudden wave of energy. Liora screamed as visions slammed into her mind, flashes of unfamiliar battles, glowing moonstones, and a crown of stars. Power, unlike anything she had ever known, roared through her blood. "Ronan, stop!" she gasped, pushing at his chest. He froze instantly, breathing hard, eyes wide with shock and concern. Liora slid down the glass on shaky legs, clutching her head as raw energy crackled over her skin. The room lights flickered. A nearby vase shattered. "What's happening to me?" she cried, terrified. Her wolf wasn't just awake anymore. It was hungry, uncontrollable. I can feel everything. Too much.
Make it stop.
Ronan pulled her against him, wrapping her in his arms despite the dangerous power sparking between them. Breathe, little wolf, I'm here. I've got you. But outside, alarms began blaring across the palace. Her uncontrolled surge had triggered every ward in the building. Footsteps thundered in the halls. Liora looked up at him, eyes still glowing with terrifying new power, fear twisting in her gut. The woman who had been caged days ago now held something ancient and deadly inside her veins, and Celine's growing army was already marching, claiming ceremony. Alarms screamed through the obsidian halls. Liora trembled violently in Ronan's arms, raw power still crackling over her skin like lightning trapped in glass. Control it, Ronan commanded, voice low and steady against her ear. Breathe with me. She clutched his bare shoulders, nails digging in as the surge ebbed. The alarms died one by one. Guards burst in but froze at Ronan's lethal glare. Out, he ordered. They vanished. Liora looked up, eyes still flickering silver. I'm dangerous. You're powerful, he corrected, kissing her forehead fiercely. And tonight, the world will see exactly who you are. Dawn broke with war drums. By noon, both packs stood gathered in the grand lunar arena, Silverfang wolves on their knees in chains of shame. Ronan's elite warriors wringing the edges like judgment made flesh. Liora walked beside the king in a flowing black and silver gown that hid her fading bruises but not her new, dangerous aura. The crowd fell silent as Ronan raised her hand high on the central dais. This woman was betrayed by her own, his voice thundered across the arena. Caged, broken, left to die by cowards who called themselves family. Today, I strip their shame and crown her truth. He turned to Liora, golden eyes burning with pride. Liora Voss, my fated mate, royal Luna of the Supreme Realm. Gasps rippled. Former Silverfang warriors lowered their heads in disgrace. Alpha Marcus, now just Marcus, knelt at the front, face pale with terror. Celine's empty spot burned like an open wound. Liora stepped forward. Her voice rang out, cracked but strengthening. I bled for you. I killed for you. And you repaid me with silver and silence. Tears stung her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. I should want you all dead. Marcus flinched. Several wolves whimpered, but I choose justice over slaughter. She continued. Your pack survives only because your king has shown me mercy I never received from you. Ronan's hand rested on the small of her back, warm and steady. The public declaration healed something deep inside her chest. Not everything, but enough. For the first time since the betrayal, she stood tall. As the ceremony ended and the sun dipped low, Ronan led her away from the crowds deep into the sacred mountain grove. Moonlight filtered through ancient trees onto a crystal-clear pool fed by glowing underground springs. This is where true bonds are sealed, he said, voice rough. They stepped into the warm water together. Clothes were shed between urgent kisses. The moment their bare bodies met beneath the surface, the mate bond roared to life. Ronan lifted her, guiding her legs around his waist. I claim you, Liora. Body, soul, power. He entered her slowly, deeply, eyes locked on hers. The stretch, the fullness, the raw emotion of it tore a sob from her throat. Every thrust pushed away another memory of the dungeon. She clung to him, nails raking down his back, meeting every powerful stroke with desperate need. Water splashed violently around them. Mine, he growled, pace quickening. Yours, she gasped, head falling back in ecstasy. The ancient magic of the pool flared. Ronan's fangs elongated. He struck, sinking his teeth into the curve of her neck and shoulder. Pain flashed into blinding pleasure. Liora screamed as her own wolf surged, biting him back on the chest in return. The bond snapped fully into place. Waves of orgasm crashed through her, so intense her vision whited out. Ronan roared her name, spilling deep inside her as their combined power lit the entire pool in brilliant silver and gold. They held each other through the aftershocks, trembling, crying, kissing through tears of release and relief. For long minutes, only their ragged breathing and the gentle lap of water filled the night. Then a scout burst through the trees, breathless and bloodied. My king, Luna! Ronan pulled Liora protectively against his chest, still joined with her in the water. Speak. The stolen moonstone. It was never taken out of Silverfang territory. We found traces of its power deep in the forbidden caves. Someone wanted it to look like Liora's crime, but the artifact is fueling something far worse underground. An old gate. Ancient enemies are waking. Leora's blood ran cold against Ronan's heat. The real war had only just begun. And Marcus? He was going to choose you as Luna. I couldn't allow that. Leora's hand trembled around Celine's throat. Revenge begged her to squeeze, to end it. Tears of fury burned her eyes. I should kill you right here. Do it, Celine hissed. But you'll never know the truth about what you really are. Ronan stepped closer. Speak. Celine's smile turned cruel. She's not some ordinary wolf king. That power she carries. Royal blood from the old gods. My family hid her as a pup after they slaughtered her real parents. She was never meant to live. Framing her was mercy compared to what should have happened. The words hit Liora like a silver blade to the gut. Her grip loosened. Ronan yanked Celine up and handed her to the guards in chains. Take her to the deepest cell, he ordered. Then he turned and pulled Liora into his arms. The moment they emerged from the caves into the moonlit forest, the dam broke. All the rage, the fresh betrayal, the shattered identity, everything exploded. Ronan sensed it. He backed her against a massive ancient tree, mouth crashing down on hers in a bruising kiss. Liora bit his lip hard enough to draw blood. He growled, lifting her roughly. Her legs locked around him as he tore at her leather. No tenderness this time, just raw need. He freed himself and thrust into her in one powerful stroke. Liora cried out, back arching against the rough bark. Ronan pounded into her with punishing force, each thrust driving out the pain, the lies, the doubt. His hand gripped her hair, pulling her head back so he could mark her neck again, sucking hard over the fresh, claiming bite. Mine, he snarled against her skin. No matter your blood, no matter their lies, you are mine. Liora came hard, screaming into the night, body shaking violently around him. Ronan followed with a deep groan, burying himself to the hilt as he spilled inside her. They stayed locked together, breathing ragged, foreheads pressed tight. But as the moon shifted, a scout's urgent howl echoed through the trees. More forces were coming, and the gate in the cave had begun to crack open. Truth and healing. They stayed locked together, breathing ragged, foreheads pressed tight. But as the moon shifted, a scout's urgent howl echoed through the trees. More forces were coming, and the gate in the cave had begun to crack open. Ronan snarled, still buried deep inside her. He pulled out slowly, steadying Liora on her feet as he yanked up his leathers. Stay behind me. No, Leora's eyes glowed silver. I'm done hiding. They raced back toward the caves with a small team. The ground trembled. Dark crimson light bled from the entrance. Before they could reach it, a wave of shadow creatures, twisted remnants of whatever ancient evil the gate held, burst out. Liora moved on pure instinct. She thrust her hands forward. Silver energy exploded in a wide arc, disintegrating 3 creatures mid-leap. The power no longer terrified her. It felt like truth. Ronan fought like a god of war beside her, claws and fangs tearing through shadows. But more kept coming. One slashed across Leora's side before she blasted it apart. Pain flared hot. Ronan roared in fury, finishing the rest in a blur of violence. Back at the palace, healers rushed in, but Ronan waved them away. He carried her to their chambers, blood still on his hands, and laid her on the massive bed. The wound was already closing thanks to her awakening blood, but the fear in his eyes remained. You're healing too fast, he said, voice rough. He peeled away her torn leathers with gentle hands, exposing every bruise, every scar from the silver dungeons, and the new gash at her ribs. Liora caught his wrist. And tell me the truth. Am I really what she said? Ronan sat beside her, pulling her into his lap so her back rested against his chest. His fingers traced the claiming mark on her neck. Yes, your bloodline is older than mine. The old gods. That's why your howl reached me across continents. That's why the silver couldn't kill you. Tears slipped down her cheeks. They murdered my parents, raised me as a servant just to use me as a scapegoat. Her voice broke. I never belonged anywhere. You belong with me. Ronan turned her to face him. His golden eyes held centuries of loneliness. I built this kingdom on blood and solitude. Then your howl shattered everything. For the first time I feel whole. The confession cracked her open. She kissed him slowly, deeply, tasting salt and blood and relief. This time there was no rush, no fury, just aching tenderness. Ronan laid her down and worshipped every inch of her body. His lips followed the path of her scars, kissing the burns on her wrists, the faded whip marks on her back, the fresh wound on her side. Each touch healed something deeper than flesh. Liora arched as his mouth moved lower, tongue teasing, exploring until she was trembling and gasping his name. She pushed him onto his back and took control. Her hands roamed the hard muscle of his chest, the old battle scars across his abdomen, the new bite mark she had given him. She lowered herself onto him inch by inch, both of them groaning at the slow, perfect slide. They moved together in deep, rolling rhythm, eyes locked, breaths mingling, hands intertwined. Every thrust carried emotion. Every moan carried healing. When release came, it rolled through them like a slow wave, powerful and devastating. Liora cried out, collapsing onto his chest as he spilled inside her, arms locked tight around her body. They stayed joined, skin to skin, hearts pounding in sync. "I love you," Ronan whispered against her hair, the words raw. "Not the bond, not the power, you." Liora pressed her face into his neck, tears soaking his skin. "I love you too. My king. My home." For one peaceful hour, the world stayed quiet. Then the war horns shattered the night. A messenger crashed through the doors, face ashen. "My king. A coalition of 5 rival alphas has declared open war. They claim you stole Liora and destabilized the entire region. Their combined armies are marching. They reach our borders by dawn." Ronan's arms tightened around her. Liora lifted her head, silver power flickering in her eyes. The real storm was here. War drums. Ronan's arms tightened around her. Liora lifted her head, silver power flickering in her eyes. The real storm was here. The messenger stood frozen, eyes fixed on the floor, as the weight of his words crushed the brief peace they had stolen. 30,000 wolves, 5 rival alphas united by fear and greed. They called Ronan a tyrant and Liora a stolen prize. The irony burned. The same pack that once caged her now watched her become the spark that could ignite an entire realm. Liora slid from Ronan's lap, her body still humming from their lovemaking, but her mind sharpened into a blade. Fear twisted in her gut like silver chains all over again. She had only just tasted freedom, love, and power. No, it threatened to be ripped away. "Give us the room," Ronan ordered, voice low and deadly. The moment the door closed, he pulled her back against his chest, burying his face in her neck, breathing her in as if memorizing her scent. "I won't let them take you. Not after everything." She felt the tremor in his powerful arms. The Supreme Alpha King feared across the continent and scared for her. That realization cracked something deep inside her chest. "I'm not the weak girl they threw in the dungeon anymore," she whispered fiercely. "But I'm terrified of losing this, losing us." Ronan kissed her hard, desperate, pouring every unspoken fear into the clash of lips and tongue. His hands roamed her body with urgent possession, as if touch alone could shield her from the coming bloodshed. "Then fight with me. Stay close, but if the lines break," his voice cracked. "Promise you'll run." "I won't promise that," she replied, eyes blazing silver. "I fight for what's mine now. And you are mine, Ronan Blackthorn." Time shattered into frantic preparation. They dressed for war, side by side. Ronan strapped on his obsidian black armor piece by piece while Liora laced reinforced battle leathers that allowed full movement. Every click of buckles, every slide of steel, felt like seconds ticking down to judgment. Outside, howls rose as warriors gathered. The palace vibrated with urgency. Before they joined the war council, Ronan dragged her into a shadowed alcove near the armory. The need between them exploded. He slammed her against the cold stone wall, mouth devouring hers with bruising intensity. "I need you," he growled against her throat. "Right now, before blood stains everything." Liora didn't hesitate. She freed him from his pants while he shoved her leathers down just enough. He lifted her, pinned her to the wall, and thrust in deep with one savage stroke. Both of them groaned at the perfect tight fit. There was nothing gentle about I. This was raw fear, and love twisted into desperate passion. Ronan pounded into her, hips snapping with powerful, punishing rhythm. "Stay alive!" he snarled between thrusts, voice breaking. "I can't lose you, not you." Liora cried out, legs locked tight around his waist, meeting every brutal thrust. Pleasure and terror spiraled together until she couldn't separate them. His hand slipped between their bodies, stroking her with perfect pressure while he drove deeper. "Come for me, little wolf. Let me feel you one more time." She shattered hard, clenching around him as ecstasy tore through her fear. Ronan followed with a guttural roar, burying himself to the hilt and spilling deep inside her, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. They stayed locked together, foreheads pressed, breaths mingling in the dark. "I love you," he whispered, voice raw. "More than my crown, more than my life." "I love you too," she answered through tears. "My king, my mate." Dawn bled across the horizon like an open wound. The battlefield stretched wide across the blood-red valley. Ronan's forces held the high ground, but the enemy sea of 30,000 stretched endlessly. Banners of 5 rival packs whipped in the wind. The air crackled with tension and the scent of coming death. Liora fought at Ronan's right hand from the first clash. Silver power exploded from her palms in devastating arcs, disintegrating entire squads of enemy warriors. She moved like vengeance incarnate, dodging blades, slashing with claws, protecting the wolves who now fought for her. Ronan was a storm of black armor and golden fury beside her, carving paths of carnage. For an hour they held the line. Blood soaked the ground. Howls of pain and triumph mixed with the clang of steel. Liora's muscles burned, but her power only grew stronger, fueled by the mate bond and the memories of her cage. The enemy struck their desperate blow. An elite squadron of assassins in dark cloaks punched through the center ranks using forbidden shadow magi. Chaos erupted. Liora blasted 2 apart, but 3 more broke through, separating her from Ronan in the melee. She heard him roar her name, but the tide of bodies swallowed the sound. A heavy blow struck her temple. The world spun. When her vision cleared, she stood in a small clearing away from the main slaughter, blood trickling down her face. Celine stepped from the tree line, freed somehow and radiating dark power, scars twisting her once beautiful face into something monstrous. "Hello, sister," Celine purred, dark energy swirling around her fingers. "Miss me?" Liora raised her glowing fists, silver power flaring bright. The greater battle still raged in the distance, but this fight, this personal war, would end here, Luna rising. Liora raised her glowing fists, silver power flaring bright. The greater battle still raged in the distance, but this fight, this personal war, would end here. Celine circled her slowly, dark energy twisting like smoke around her scarred hands. The woman who had once framed her with fake tears now looked like a monster dragged from the pit, eyes wild, face twisted with hatred. "You think killing me fixes anything? You were born to be used, stray." Liora didn't waste words. She attacked. Silver energy exploded from her palms in a concentrated blast. Celine threw up a dark shield, but the impact still hurled her backward into a thick tree trunk. Wood splintered violently. Celine roared and retaliated with a spear of corrupted moonstone magic. Liora twisted midair, but the edge grazed her shoulder, burning like acid. Pain only fueled her. They collided in a storm of claws, fangs, and raw power. Celine slashed across Liora's collarbone, drawing hot blood. Liora answered with a savage elbow that cracked Celine's jaw, followed by a glowing palm strike to the chest that sent her skidding across the dirt. "You took my home," Liora screamed, voice cracking with 3 days of dungeon hell. "You watched them shave my hair. You smiled while they chained me in silver." Celine laughed through bloodied lips and lunged again. Their powers clashed in a blinding explosion that flattened nearby trees. Liora felt every betrayal like fresh wounds, the disgusted faces of the pack. Marcus's cold dismissal. The endless nights she cried alone, wondering what she had done to deserve it. That pain became power. Her wolf surged, fully awake. Ancient royal blood ignited in her veins. The ground beneath her feet cracked in a spiderweb pattern as blinding silver light poured off her body. Her eyes burned pure starfire. Celine's face finally showed fear. "No, that power belongs to us," Celine shrieked, throwing everything she had left, a massive wave of dark energy. Liora met it head-on. A concentrated beam of pure moonlight tore from her hands and smashed through Celine's attack like it was nothing. The light struck Celine square in the torso. Her dark shield shattered with a sound like breaking glass. Celine screamed as the beam lifted her off the ground, burning away layers of corruption, lies, and cruelty. "I was never yours to break," Liora said, voice steady even as tears streamed down her face. "I was never weak. You only made me stronger." With one final, devastating push, she drove the silver light straight into Celine's heart. Celine's body convulsed violently in midair. Her eyes widened in shock, regret, and terror all at once. A broken whisper escaped her lips, "Mercy," before the light consumed her completely. Her body dropped lifeless to the blood-soaked ground. Silence crashed over the clearing. Liora's knees buckled. She fell forward, hands slamming into the dirt as violent sobs tore from her chest. All the poison she had carried for years, the shame, the loneliness, the rage poured out of her in wave after wave. She screamed into the earth until her throat was raw. Justice had finally come, but it tasted like ash and tears. Heavy footsteps pounded toward her. Ronan burst into the clearing like death incarnate, armor dented and covered in enemy blood, golden eyes wild with terror. The moment he saw her kneeling over Celine's corpse, the terror melted into fierce pride. He dropped to his knees and pulled her into a crushing embrace, uncaring of the blood and dirt between them. "You did it," he whispered hoarsely, pressing kisses to her temple, her wet cheeks, her claiming mark. "My Luna, my fierce, unbreakable queen, you ended your nightmare with your own hands." Liora clung to him, sobbing into his neck. "It's over. She can't hurt me anymore." The main battlefield had turned. Without Celine's dark leadership and stolen power, the coalition forces shattered. Ronan's warriors howled in victory as the enemy broke ranks and fled. By sunset, the valley belonged to them. Night fell with celebration thundering through the palace. Music, victory howls, and feasts filled the great halls. But Ronan had no interest in crowds. The second they slipped away from the cheering masses, he had Liora pinned against the wall of a private corridor, mouth devouring hers with weeks of pent-up fear and relief. "You were magnificent out there," he growled, voice thick with lust and awe. His hands tore at her battle leathers, desperate to feel skin. "Like a goddess of war and vengeance, I've never wanted you more." Liora ripped open his armor straps with equal hunger. They left a trail of clothes and weapons across the floor as they stumbled into their royal chambers. Ronan lifted her and dropped her onto the massive bed, then worshipped her like a man who had almost lost everything. His mouth claimed every new scar, every bruise from the day's battle. He lingered on the claiming mark on her neck, sucking hard until she moaned loudly. Lower still, his tongue drove her to the edge with devastating skill, fingers curling inside her until her back arched off the bed and she came with his name torn from her throat. She flipped him over, straddling his powerful body. Liora sank down onto his hard, throbbing length in one smooth motion. They both groaned at the perfect, tight fit. She rode him with fierce strength, hips rolling powerfully while Ronan gripped her thighs, golden eyes locked on hers with raw devotion. "Mine," he snarled, thrusting up to meet her. "Yours," she gasped, nails raking down his chest. "Only yours." Their rhythm turned wild and desperate, skin slapping, breaths ragged, bodies glistening with sweat. Pleasure built like a rising storm until it broke over them both. Liora screamed, clenching violently around him as ecstasy tore through her. Ronan roared her name, spilling deep inside her while holding her down hard against him, as if he could fuse their souls together. They collapsed together, tangled and breathing hard, victory still pulsing in their veins. But the night refused to grant them full peace. Guards dragged a dying enemy commander into the room. The man laughed weakly through bloodied lips, eyes fixed on Liora. "You think killing Celine ends this?" he rasped. "The moonstone was only a trigger. The old gods are waking. And they want their true daughter back." He pointed a trembling, bloody finger directly at Liora. "The ancient ones are coming for their blood heir. Your power belongs to them, girl. They will tear this kingdom apart to claim you." Ronan's arms tightened around her like iron. Cold dread settled over their hard-won victory as the commander's final breath rattled out. The real war was only beginning. Eternal claim. Ronan's arms tightened around her like iron. Cold dread settled over their hard-won victory as the commander's final breath rattled out. The real war was only beginning. Liora stared at the lifeless body, silver power crackling uncontrollably across her skin. The commander's words echoed like a death knell, the old gods awakening, demanding their blood heir. The same power that had saved her life now painted a target on everything she loved. "No," she whispered, then louder. "No!" She pushed away from Ronan and stood, chest heaving. "I was caged by my own pack, betrayed by people I called family. I will not be chained again by ancient monsters who murdered my real parents." Ronan rose beside her, radiating lethal fury. He grabbed the dead commander by the collar and hurled the corpse across the room with terrifying strength. "If the old gods want you, they'll have to go through me first." His golden eyes burned as he turned to her. "I crossed continents for your howl. I will burn down eternity for your freedom." He dismissed the guards with a single growl and pulled Liora into a crushing kiss. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate, possessive, filled with the terror of almost losing her again. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers, breathing hard. "Come with me," he said. "Now." He lifted her into his arms and carried her out of the palace, past the roaring victory celebrations, straight into the moonlit sacred grove. The same crystal pool where he had first claimed her glowed under the full moon, its waters shimmering with ancient magic. Ronan set her down and began stripping away their blood-stained clothes with urgent hands. Under the silver moonlight, they stood bare before each other's scars, fresh wounds, claiming marks and all. "You are not a weapon for the gods," Ronan vowed, voice thick with emotion. "You are not a tool for power. You are Liora, my mate, my Luna, my everything." Tears slipped down her cheeks as she reached for him. "I was so broken when you found me, shaved, starved, ready to die in that silver cage. You gave me back my fight, my heart, my future." Their mouths crashed together. The kiss deepened into something raw and eternal. Ronan lifted her and carried her into the warm, glowing water. The moment their bodies submerged, the pool responded magic, swirling around them like living starlight. He entered her slowly, inch by inch, eyes locked on hers. Liora gasped at the stretch, at the overwhelming fullness, at the way the mate bond flared brighter than ever. They moved together in deep rolling waves, water splashing around them as passion built. "I love you," Ronan growled against her lips, thrusting harder, deeper. "Every tear you cried in that dungeon, every scar they gave you, every ounce of power now running through your veins. I love all of it." Liora moaned loudly, legs wrapped tight around his waist, meeting every powerful stroke. "I trust you with my past, with this dangerous blood inside me, with whatever comes next." Her nails dug into his shoulders as pleasure spiked. "You are my home, Ronan, the only one who ever came for me." Their rhythm turned urgent and fierce. Ronan drove into her with devastating strength, water churning violently around them. He kissed down her neck, sucking hard over her claiming mark until she cried out. One hand gripped her hip possessively while the other slid between them, stroking her with perfect pressure. Liora shattered first, screaming his name as ecstasy tore through her body in blinding waves. Her inner walls clenched around him, silver power exploding outward and lighting the entire pool in brilliant radiance. Ronan followed with a deep guttural roar, spilling hot and deep inside her while holding her impossibly close, as if he could shield her from the coming gods themselves. They stayed joined for long minutes, trembling, kissing softly through tears of relief and love. The pool's magic wrapped around them like a blessing, healing their wounds and soothing their exhausted bodies. Later, they lay on the soft, mossy bank wrapped in a thick blanket. Liora rested her head on Ronan's chest, listening to his strong heartbeat. His fingers gently stroked her back, tracing every scar with tender reverence. "The girl who howled in that dungeon never imagined this," she whispered. "Freedom, love, a king who would tear the world apart for her." Ronan tilted her chin up, golden eyes shining with unshed tears. "And this king never imagined finding someone worth burning everything for. You healed me too, Liora. I was cold, alone, ruling a kingdom built on fear. Your pain called to me, and your strength saved me." She smiled softly, placing his large hand over her lower belly. "If the moon has blessed us, our child will carry the best of both of us, your strength, my power, and the freedom we fought so hard to win." Ronan's breath caught. A fierce protective joy lit his face as he felt the faintest spark of new life. He kissed her deeply, pouring every promise into it. But the night sky refused to stay peaceful. On the distant horizon, crimson lightning cracked across the mountains. The ground trembled faintly. Ancient power stirred the old gods, beginning to wake. Ronan pulled her tighter against his chest, his body tensing like a weapon ready to strike. "Let them come," he whispered fiercely. "Our bond is stronger than any ancient curse. You howled for me once. Now we face eternity together." Liora looked up at the blood-red lightning, then back at her mate. The fear was still there, but so was unbreakable resolve. She had survived betrayal, silver cages, and her own darkness. She would not bow to gods who saw her as property. She kissed Ronan again, slow and full of promise. No more cages, no more running. Whatever comes, we fight, we love, we win. As the full moon bathed them in pure silver light, the Supreme Alpha King and his royal Luna held each other tight, two broken souls who had forged something eternal from pain, passion, and unwavering loyalty. The war with the old gods was coming, but their love had already survived hell. And it would survive anything else the universe threw at them. If your heart is still racing after that howl, then hit that like button right now. If you want to see Liora unleash her full power on everyone who betrayed her, drop a comment with the word mine. And if you're addicted to this story and need the next chapter immediately, smash that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell, because the war with the old gods is coming and you don't want to miss what happens when a broken Luna rises with her king. Comment mine if you're Team Liora and Ronan. See you in the next chapter, wolves.